One of my biggest messages to share with the earth and humanity is that all that we suppress is robbing us of our birthright. It is birthright of every single one of us to reach enlightenment. It's not for the Buddha, it's not for Jesus, it is for every single one of us. And the number one hindrance we have is blocked, painful emotion in our body, because it lowers the frequency of the actual electromagnetic signature being produced by the body. And we are turning our energy, our universal energy that we all have inside ourselves, we're turning it from energy into stress, into reaction, into judgment, into blame. Every time we liberate these limited emotions, there's a decrease in the electromagnetic frequency being produced around the human body.
My guest today is Damien Horton, who had a crippling addiction to alcohol and drugs and was in a very horrific car accident that was self-inflicted. As a result, he spent a lot of time in a coma. But when he woke up, he had an incredible download, and he instantly knew what he was going to need to do to completely heal himself. And since then, he has transformed into a completely different person. This might sound like it's resonating on the same level as a Joe Dispenza, because I think his story has some parallels to that one, but you're not going to want to miss what he has done to completely eradicate all of these issues, including his addictions, from his life. So, Damien, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
This is going to be good. So I'm excited because I think that as time goes on, more and more we're going to understand that healing isn't going to be something we hand to somebody else to fix. It's going to be something that we have the ability to change within ourselves. And I also believe in the future, healing will be a combination of light and vibration and frequency. So I'd love to have just your initial thoughts on that statement.
Absolutely. Everything is energy. This entire universe, and if we think about our physical bodies, we are a collection of 70 trillion cells or so. And all of those cells are fundamentally built out of atoms. And as we all know, atoms are 99.9999999999% empty space.
Yeah.
They're empty space. So when I came out of my coma, love, and I don't mean that sort of ego love, the way a lot of people generally think of love. I mean like true, divine, spiritual love was just in my being, and that love is what healed me from critical injuries. So that's all frequency. That's the energy of these heightened emotions like gratitude and love and joy. And they are able to correct illness, injury, disease in the body, and raise the frequency of these atoms that are making up the cells, that are making up all of the tissues and the organs in our body. And when we increase that frequency, and I'm living proof of this, I am science, we are able to heal. We are absolutely able to heal. So that's what I would say.
Exciting. Like, how exciting for the people who have tuned in, whether they clicked on what the thumbnail said because they were intrigued, or whether they're really searching for solutions to things that are ailing them. So I'm curious, will you tell us a little bit about what your life was like before you decided to run your car off the road?
Wow. So this seems like another person's life I'm talking about now, but at about age 3, my parents separated, and I just believed or formed a story inside myself that I was worthless, that I didn't deserve love. I craved to have a dad in my life. I just wanted that father figure, that presence, and there was no masculine influence. There was no dad for me. And it caused me extreme pain, immense pain as a little boy, very, very young little boy, and eventually just collapsed into the darkest depression that you could ever imagine. Worthlessness and self-hate. I hated my precious being, even as young as 8 or 9 years old. And when you have such a crippling illness, like that level of depression for so long, when I made it to high school, I found that I could self-medicate and not feel like shit all the time, not want to kill myself every second weekend if I just started, going to the parties and taking drugs, going to the clubs and all of that sort of stuff. And I set about on this roller coaster ride of self-destruction that led me to August 12, 2007. And I'm actually just reading the Red Hot Chili Peppers lead singer, Anthony Kiedis. I'm just reading his book, Scar Tissue, at the moment, about his journey with depression and addiction. And there's so many parallels in there when you are in that space of just mere survival, of just feeling so alone and so worthless, and this substance, this drug, this amphetamine, whatever it may be, it just numbs you just for a little bit of time. And it felt good as well, I'm not going to lie. I loved the high, I was addicted to the high, and then August 12, 2007 was like my dark night of the soul. And that night, it was going to make me who I am today, or it would kill me. That was it. I was sitting at the crossroads. It's 3 a.m. in Adelaide Hills in South Australia. It's winter, it's freezing cold. And I'm at this intersection with 3 roads that are ahead of me. And in that moment, I'd finally reached the bottom. Like, I could not live another second in worthlessness. I couldn't. There was no more drugs I could take. Nothing could take the pain away. As I said in my book, no orgasm or another line of drugs was going to stop anything. I finally knew something had to change. And so to the right and the left, those roads, one led back to drugs and one led down to town where I could go to the clubs or, gamble or whatever it may be. But the road straight ahead, it was what my heart wanted. It was the road back home, where my mum was. And my mum had watched me crippled by drugs and depression for about a decade, more than 10 years of my life. And in that moment, I, as an atheist as well, before my near-death experience, devout atheist, but I reached this point where I just decided I had to call on something. I had to pray to something, some consciousness, some energy, something out in the universe greater than me. And I just found out that a girl, that I was deeply in love with was cheating on me, and I was broken. My heart had snapped, and in that moment, I just had tears rolling down my cheeks, and I promised to this higher consciousness that I wouldn't go through one more day of drugs. I wouldn't spend one more moment in desperation. I wouldn't keep causing suffering and pain in this world around me, and I would step into love and beauty and gratitude if it just let me get home, just get home to my mum. And so I swore on my soul I'd start again in the morning. And it was a feeling that I've never experienced before. this juxtaposition of deep desperation and worthlessness, but shedding that skin of the old me, like letting it go. Finally, it's run its course. It's not there. It's not in the sex. It's not in the drugs. It's in none of that. And so I just surrendered to something greater. And then I took off from that intersection, and actually a police car drove past, and I panicked. And when a police car went past me, I put my foot on the accelerator. I just thought, I've got to get home, and I went into complete survival. And 45 seconds later, I smashed my car into a rock wall, going over 100 kilometers an hour, and my face went into the steering wheel with no airbag, complete dead stop, and shattered basically every bone in the human face, fractured my skull, critical head injuries, had hemorrhaging globally through my entire brain, broke my spine in 6 places. I shattered my back in L1, L2, and L3, crushed, and I drowned in my blood, and my lungs collapsed. And my only memory then for the next 8 days is what happened to me in my coma. And I had a profound spiritual awakening in that space. I had total recall as soon as I came out of my coma. And it was like you just clicked your fingers right now. Suddenly the world just turns black, and you open your eyes and you find yourself 42 kilos in intensive care at the Royal Adelaide Hospital, with tubes coming out of every part of my body. This machine's been breathing for me, keeping me alive, and had surgically cut my face off. They had to come in behind the ear and remove my face and rebuild my face and skull with 44 metal plates, 44 pieces of titanium. And the only thing I knew was that the identity, or the image in the mirror that I've been so identified with, that is Damien Horton, I knew was the furthest thing from the truth. And something came into me, a consciousness came into my being in that coma that's never gone away, it's never left me, to awaken and to expand consciousness and experience that level of love and unity, the oneness ultimately that all life, all varied expressions of life ultimately are. I knew instantly that I would cure myself. I knew I could heal myself. And I knew that every single medical expert was wrong. And the physios and orthopedic surgeons and the neurologists and the reconstructive surgeons could say anything they wanted to me. And internally in my heart, I just kept saying to myself over and over again, you know, bless you. God bless you for saving my life. I appreciate what you're saying, but you're talking about another patient. You're not talking about me. I beat this. I heal my brain. I heal my back, my spine, and I'm out of here. I'm walking out of this place. And that's exactly what did happen. I took my first steps. I was walking 5 days later after shattering my back in 6 places. So yeah, there's a quick rundown of where I came from.
Damian, first of all, I can't imagine the pain that you have had to go through in those at least initial times, but to be awakened, you know, from something and realize what's happened in the state that you're in, but then also to have another something enter into your body. Can you describe a little bit more about that? What is, because I've heard of the term a walk-in. And for those of you watching who are not familiar with that term, it's where somebody has a life-changing event. A lot of times it'll be a near-death experience, and they'll be shown that there's another part of a soul that comes in and switches places, leaves, they have some other agenda, they've changed their contract, their timeline, the whatever it is. But what it sounds to me like you're saying isn't necessarily a walk-in. I almost feel like you let a little bit more of your higher self come in. So will you go into some detail about what this is and what you mean from what you understand now?
Absolutely. Yeah, many people have said that to me over the years around the world, where I've been at events or been speaking, and they've talked about that, or like a soul swap. Or what I know is that the underlying thread of my coma was a opportunity or a test. I don't really like the word test, but it's probably the closest word I can find that universal consciousness set up a situation within my coma where there was a being that was protecting me. It was like caring for me and protecting. And then there was like a trickster. That's the only way I can put it. It was like there was a trickster presence in the room that, funnily enough, with my journey, was offering me drugs. They were trying to coerce me with cocaine, and they were telling me this will help you heal. You need to heal, and this is going to help with the healing process. And the essence of who I am, so unconditioned consciousness, the true self, knew fundamentally in the depths of my being, in my heart, that it was a no, that this was wrong, that I had chosen to come into physical form to experience duality, polarity, heartache, love, separation, being separate from source and from one another. This is what we signed up for, and that I knew on the highest level of consciousness that life is the most sacred gift that we've ever been given, and that there was a responsibility to honor and to nurture and to fall in love with this gift. And so I said no. Non-verbal communication. Just within consciousness, the resonance was, I choose life and I choose love. And in that moment, there was no memory of Damien Horton. There had never been or never would be the identity of I am Damien Horton with this story, this past, this pain. It was just I am. You can remove all the other stuff after I am. And that's the unconditioned state. And as soon as that no, that resonance of this is wrong, I was pulled or like ripped into a portal, into a tunnel of light. And it was the most profound and beautiful experience I've ever known. And it happened the moment I said, I am Damien Horton. And I said, when that test was passed, I remembered the identity of me. And as soon as that conditioning of consciousness happened, I was pulled through this. You can't even put words, you can't even say the word light, because people think of the light that we see here. It's not even close. It was almost like pale, like matte, divine light made up in itself of like fractal patterns. And I was just pulled through it. And then there I am in this hospital bed, emaciated and shattered, with my face still sort of not on properly because my skin was all drooping down to the side. And there was my brother and my mum. just sitting there, and they'd been with me the whole time. My brother had held my hand and sung. You know, I'm a musician, I'm a singer-songwriter, professional musician, and he'd been singing to me. He'd been singing Jeff Buckley, Hallelujah, Jeff Buckley's version of Hallelujah, while I was in that coma. And then I was back. And within me was a reconnection to my heart. I think it was there when I was a little boy. I think I remember being a really little kid and having part of this, but it was like times ecstasy by a million. And people would come into intensive care and they were like, man, I can feel this energy, Damien, around you, like rippling off you, love. And there I am, all emaciated and 42 kilos. Bella, stop. It's my dog, Bella. I look like a deformed freak. My mum said, you look like Auschwitz. You look like a prisoner of war. You were so emaciated. You could see every one of my ribs and vertebrae. And I was just the most positive person in this whole hospital, just glowing and talking to people about my future and how I could see it. I could already see the healing. And people were like, he's nuts. He's had critical brain hemorrhaging. His frontal lobes and my temporal lobes on both sides were obliterated. You know, they're just thinking Damien's gone, but I had actually just found myself. I had just come to life, like I just taken my first breath, the very first breath in this world. And it's never left me. It's never left me. It's just this resonance within my heart, and it just lights up all the cells in my body. I can feel the frequency of my body increase, and I can do this through sadness as well, like through honest grief, and to be there, like the compassion for someone that's going through something. I can bring that in, and it feels beautiful and divine and enriching, not something that's negative and limiting, like depression, like we see with rage and violence and anger. And it all brings us down. It brings us into matter, and it brings us into stress and reactivity and out of our divinity, out of the true self, our connection to the universal consciousness. So I would say I got an upgrade. And I had to learn how to
Love
talk.
that term. I love
Yeah.
that term, upgrade.
Yeah, but I had to learn how to talk again. I had to learn how to do everything again. I had to learn how to hold a G chord on the guitar again. I had to learn how to walk again. So as you said before, it was a really hard road. I've had so much surgery and so much pain and pieces of bones, the back of my skull chopped out and my ribs, and there's been a lot to get through, but I wouldn't change a single thing that has ever happened in my life, because it brought me to this beautiful moment, and I love who I've become. And I'm here speaking with you, sharing this message that can help humanity. What a blessing, what a gift.
Wow. Oh, I have so many questions for you. So the other side where you were with that light, and you've called it this a couple of times. You've called it universal consciousness. I too have been on the other side and understand universal consciousness. Sometimes I like to call it the we, because
The what, sorry?
the we, because when I say something else, it sounds like I'm talking about something outside of myself. But you can't separate yourself from the universal consciousness. That's why it's the we. That's what I was shown. How do you delineate between that and other things that you would see, like, for example, that entity that was near you, the trickster? What to you, I guess, what is your definition with your experiences of universal consciousness, so everybody watching can understand in the false limitation of words that we have to describe these things?
I could say I tested myself at the very, very top of that ladder, Jacob's ladder, whatever you want to call it, that pyramid, that at the very highest point, all is one.
Mm-hmm.
The we, as you said before, there's no subject-object relationship here, but in our human experience, we experience multiplicity and polarity and division and linear time. And there is no linear time back home. It's now. I actually remember one of my early girlfriends telling me, oh, life began this long ago and there was this point and this starting point. And I just said to her, no, we're eternal. This whole linear comprehension of our experience is based on this dimension of space and time, that as materialists, we are so addicted to the 3D. And because you were born into this physical body, we think that this is all there is. Like, I woke up in this place, so I'm here and you're there, and I've got enemies and people doing me wrong, and there's stories of the past that I carry to, uphold this artificial sense of self, and the gap between source and where we are here is almost beyond the realms of language. It's the we, it's the oneness. So I tested myself. There's no subject-object relationship with God. That's the God of the ego. That's this thing is outside of me, and generally it's a man as well, and it's sitting on a cloud. And I get it. I understand people want to believe in that. Remember, I was an atheist before I went to that place. But all separation, all beings, all expressions of life are unified. And I know that to put it in like a physical linear sense from a 3D perspective, and when people have near-death experiences, let me just shoot off to the side here a little bit. There's what I call bleed through. You come back and no one's message is pure. You're back in this physical body and we do the best we can to put it into words, but this transcends words. And some people, also have preconceived notions because of their conditioning, where they've come from, or they were raised in a certain religion. So when they verbalize it, there's this bleed through. It sort of gets tainted, if you will. So all I can say from my experience is that I tested myself to find out if my heart, and it was the heart, that was what this universal consciousness, which is us, was looking upon. All that mattered was the heart. And when the heart, the frequency was pure and true, that was it. I was ripped back through that portal to this realm. So from a physical linear point of view, in our experience, you'd say my smaller self was tested by my higher self. And another religious person I spoke to the other day here in South Australia, down by the beach, she said, oh no, that was Jesus. So this is Jesus and this is you, and Jesus tested you. And I said, if that's the word that resonates with you, that's fine. But if we go even higher than that and go up above it and then go to the very top rung on that ladder of consciousness, it's the we. You said it beautifully before. It was just oneness that we all come from.
That's all there is up there. That's it. Everything is just what I saw was a drop. Like this me was just one teeny drop from that we. You're the drop. But when I look at you, you are me and I am you. We can't even separate ourselves that way. Every rock, every plant, every person, everything. And I don't even know if that consciousness is all there is. I feel like the more I uncover, the less I know. Because is it possible that that's just the consciousness that governs this? Could there be millions of those kinds of consciousness that have an even larger umbrella? Like, who knows?
Yeah, like infinite, fractal, like
Yeah,
it goes. And I would say absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
It has to be all that can be is
right.
existing in infinite now. And the governing principle is loving consciousness. There is this loving intelligence that is coalescing all of these perfect expressions of itself into physical form so that we can choose our own adventure, so that we can have this divine experience of life,
Just for the
thing we
joy of
call
it.
life, just for the joy of it. Yeah.
Because when you realize that you cannot be harmed, it lets you look at all of those things a little bit differently. And I'm not saying they're not difficult and that we don't experience things that are very heartbreaking here. We do. It doesn't take away from any of that, but it
Yeah.
helps you, I think, to deal with those things better when you can understand it with a different perspective. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we are here to experience polarity, obviously. We
Right.
chose this. We conditioned consciousness to come within this frequency range where we have the 3D universe, and you can't block one side of the human experience. I was again just talking to a friend about this the other day. The sort of the pseudo spiritual teachers and gurus out there often try and say, well, it's just this and it's just that, and don't feel emotion, avoid emotion, and only be light and consciousness and love. And going within to the shadow is actually the fastest way to expand your consciousness, to reach enlightenment for yourself, is to suppress and deny no part of yourself. It doesn't mean you act on it, but rather than projecting all of the stuff that we hide onto the people around us and making your coworker an enemy or your ex-husband an enemy, if you look at your own shadow and you realize it's within you, and then you love that part of yourself, you bring love into it. And heartache and pain is part of this experience. My music gets written from love, and it gets written from a heart that's being torn out of my chest. And I don't want to stop or block or deny any part of it, because there's beauty, there's strength, there's light, there's consciousness in the struggles that we go through. And ultimately, we're bringing all of these experiences back with us, back to source, back to your home, which is my home, which is the home of every person out here, regardless of the color of your skin or your sexual preferences or your political views. Your home is my home, and we're going back to the same place. And I can love you unconditionally as if I'm just caring for myself, because I look at you and I see me. I look at you and see a perfect expression of his consciousness, you know.
Exactly.
So
All right, so I'm so curious. I really wish I was with you in person right now because you really intrigued me with something that you said that I actually have never heard anybody else say. And that was that when you came back into your body and you're sitting there with all of these apparatus attached to you to heal you, and you're emaciated, that you were undulating this energy that was palpable by everybody around you. And I'm wondering, since you were able to harness that, and it seems like you may have gotten even better over time doing that, do you still get people who comment about your energy when they're in your physical presence?
yeah, absolutely, I do. I was
And
even
is
doing
this
a
something we can all do? Can we all raise our
yes,
own vibration in order to do that?
yes.
So I'd like you to speak to this, and I'd like you to explain in the whatever way you can how we can all start to practice this.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So um, the practicality of it is to process the pain, is the hurt that we carry. That's what blocks us from the light. It's everything that you suppress basically stays within us. It doesn't go away through, trying to drink it away or drug it away or becoming a violent person. We get that rush of the chemistry in our body because we move into anger. We have all these avoidance techniques. One of my biggest messages to share with the earth and humanity is that all that we suppress is robbing us of our birthright. It is birthright of every single one of us to reach enlightenment. It's not for the Buddha. It's not for Jesus. It is for every single one of us. And the number one hindrance we have is blocked, painful emotion in our body because it lowers the frequency of the actual electromagnetic signature being produced by the body. And we are turning our energy, our universal energy that we all have inside ourselves, we're turning it from energy into stress, into reaction, into judgment, into blame. Every time we liberate these limited emotions, there's a decrease in the electromagnetic frequency being produced around the human body. Okay, so as Carl Jung said, you don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, right? You reach enlightenment by making the darkness conscious. It's the courage for you to step in, because the emotion moves through you really, really quickly. You might have to bawl your eyes out. You might need to really grieve and wail or scream at the go to the ocean somewhere and just scream out at the water. I know this sounds insane, but it's as we ignore and block and suppress and carry this pain within us, we block our ability to connect to this frequency that I'm sharing with your audience right now. So when we're in that state, we just want to allow it to be, just awareness. Let the emotion pass without giving it a name, without labeling it, without projecting it onto other people, without expressing it. We don't even need to walk around and express it to other people. It's that state of just being the observer, just being pure consciousness, witnessing this physical body, this temple, and understanding that this is pain. This is raw, like Eckhart Tolle says, it's the pain body, it's the human pain body. It's in the collective field. And the more we keep triggering it and we react, we keep us all in this lower state of consciousness, and it robs us from being able to climb higher. So number one is to look where you don't want to look. If you own your shadow, let it pass through. As I said, like in my journey, I bawled my eyes out. There's a chapter in my book about this. I finally cried tears that were 21 years in the making. I bawled my eyes out. A lot of men really struggle with this. Like, that's weakness. No. That was spiritual courage. That's what that is. And on the other side of allowing that to move, it left me. It left my being. And it turns from matter, and by that I mean stress, reactivity, limited emotions, anger and judgment, frustration. It turns from the body producing those limited feelings back up the spine. It turns into energy. And every one of us can do this. Step one, acknowledge, allow, feel what you're afraid to feel. As you've heard, what you resist persists. So feel what you're afraid to feel. Step two, stop expecting the world to make you happy. Stop expecting people to bring you joy or give me appreciation. I cultivate it within myself before I get out of bed every single morning. in the knowing that this is the most sacred gift that we have ever been given. We already received it. This breath that I just took, to wake up in this body, is this sacred gift. And you don't need to have your face cut and ripped off and basically kill yourself in a car crash to realize this. I did it the stupid way, but it was my path, okay? It's what I had to go through. I'm trying to show people another way, a lot less painful way, that if you start cultivating love within your body, start feeling it and sitting in that frequency through the law of resonance in physics, the law of entrainment, what happens is you slowly start to increase the vibration of every atom making up every cell that combines to make every tissue and organ that makes the physical body known as you. Because those atoms are 99.999999999% empty. It's not physical. They are little tiny vortices, like whirlwinds, little tornadoes of energy, different frequencies. And the more energy that's being emitted by the atom, the more energy that the cell has, okay, for the functioning of life, for the health and vitality of that cell. And then collectively, those cells make up the systems of your body, organs, physical body known as you, and then collectively, your 70 trillion cells are moving at a faster frequency. And this is the frequency of love and appreciation and self-expression and joy and hope, gratitude for existence. And you can walk into a room of people that are angry and hostile and negative and feel it in 2 seconds. Their collective field, okay, might be sitting this far off their body. The Heart Math Institute of California have shown that when you're in rage, that field is less than 1 centimeter from the human body. And when you open your heart and you just move into this immense love for existence, they've measured the electromagnetic frequency of the heart over 10 meters away from your body, every direction. And in that state, you are the healer. In that state, no doctor, you realize, can heal you. Doctors don't do the healing. We are the healer. We are the healer. I'm living proof that this is the case. And this is available to everyone. So there's just some suggestions for your audience. We don't want to look where we're afraid to look. And this isn't about drudging up the past. It's not about forming a victim story. It's not about, not being in the present moment, the power of now. It's none of that stuff. It's about you having some me time, some alone time, some self-care, some self-love, and realizing how important this is for you to move this energy that's stagnant in you, painful emotion, because you are either raising the collective frequency of humanity towards divine love, or you are causing suffering and you are pulling our brothers and our sisters back. And the more we keep pulling it back, we see the rape of this Mother Earth. Look at what the corporate mindset that the ego is doing to the forest, to the ocean, in the pursuit of being better than and more than, in this pursuit of money. That is all a lower frequency, a lower state of consciousness that hasn't accessed or tapped into the we, the oneness that you talked about before. So I actually believe we have a responsibility. I believe as you start to awaken, this is a spiritual responsibility to be the example of the change you want to see in the world. It's not about what you say. It's your energy. It's how you hold yourself. It's who you are being. That's what changes the world. And that is accessed through increasing this frequency in us. And you do it through processing pain and then deliberately, like you would practice playing guitar or piano if you're a musician, or if you want to learn how to paint, you've got to practice, okay? You have to rehearse each morning stepping into love. Because the more you feel this, the less you're trying to get it from things outside of you, from, the gambling or relationships. Like you're trying to take from your friends and your family and from the media, from television, rather than trying to get joy. Cultivate it, be that love within yourself, and wait and see how your life starts to change. You attract new experiences, new opportunities, and new people. These souls come to you, and friendship and love on a level that you did not even know could exist beforehand. So yeah, they're my tips for your audience.
Those are beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So a minute ago, you said, you are the healer. We are the healer. We heal ourselves. And clearly, you did just that. I know this isn't a 5-minute conversation. I know that this is so much more in depth, but to give us a taste of what you did in a way that we can understand it, how in the world did you heal yourself from back, spine injuries, from facial, brain injuries? How did you do this?
It was that energy, it was that consciousness, that love that was rippling off my body. I felt like whatever that means, I was beyond the hospital room. I could feel that, like the Heart Math Institute, that 10, 13 meters in every direction from the heart. I could feel that being generated as soon as I came into this physical world again. A couple of people, I remember at least twice, people came in and they touched my leg or my arm and they got an electric shock, an actual bolt. One of my friends, I remember he goes, oh my God, man, you just electrocuted me. So one is the knowing. I've known since I was a little boy that if I believe in germs, if I believe that person coughing will make me sick, I get sick. I did this in primary school. I go, I think I am, one of the most powerful words in the universe, I am getting sick. And the next morning I'd wake up, my glands, my sinuses were puffy. And so there's that little moment of fear. We go, oh no, that person sneezed. And then every time, 10 times out of 10, I would get sick. So I realized when I was a little boy, before all of this, that the mind is that powerful. We can psychosomatic, we can bring about illness. This is known, this is proven. Look at the placebo effect. So I knew as soon as I came out of that coma that if I believed any of these medical experts, all the big, flashy degrees and they're top of their medical game, we treat them like they're above us, like they're God, this God complex. It's such rubbish. It's such rubbish. We are all equal. I knew that if it entered into my consciousness that I couldn't heal, I would not heal. So I just was deaf. I literally played a little game where I just kept saying, thanks for your opinion, but you're talking about someone else. And I would actually be deaf because every stream of consciousness coalesces into our experience of life, okay? It becomes reality, it becomes matter, it becomes biochemical expressions, it becomes genetic expression through epigenetics, through the mind-body connection. And then we can bring about illness and disease through negativity. We know this. We look at the pointing the bone or the voodoo curse. People think they've got a disease and then they get sick, which means the opposite is true, the law of reversibility. I can heal this because if the mind can make me sick, then the mind can heal me. So I would sit with my eyes closed on my back, shattered in pain, and I would visualize a reality. I would go into a place in my mind where I was lifting weights, and I kept doing it every morning. I was picturing like lifting the bar up off the weights bench and feeling strong and feeling the cold of the bar on my hands, getting all the senses involved. And I never faltered and never believed that that wouldn't come to pass. And I have no pain in my back. I have absolutely no disability and no pain in my back, but I shattered it in 6 different places through L1, L2, and L3. And I was back doing physical manual labor as a tradie within 6 or 7 weeks.
That's
And
incredible.
that wasn't being reckless. That was, I wasn't suffering. My back healed. Yeah.
Wow. I want to inject some science into what you said. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep for Pfizer for a number of years. And so I've always been very fascinated with different clinical studies. And in order for a study to pass and be accepted, it has to have statistical significance. And I remember one where they took some people who had broken their wrist and they put a cast on them. And then they divided them into a control group and into a secondary group. And in the control group, they didn't do anything. They just let them go through the 6 weeks in the cast. But for the other group, they had them imagine in their mind, I think it was 20 minutes, and it might have been 2 or 3 times a day, that they were doing what you were talking about, where you were lifting the weights, you were feeling the chalk, you were feeling the cold bar on your hands, you were feeling the heaviness of the weights coming back down after you had lifted them. So they were doing this visual exercise, just like what you explained. And at the end of that, whatever it was, 8-week, 12-week period, the control group didn't have any improvement, obviously. They had atrophied. And I think there might have been 3 groups, but however it worked, the group that in their minds did these exercise had a 13% increase in muscle where they should have atrophied. So there's absolute science, and there's something called the placebo effect, that all drugs, in order to be approved by the FDA, have to go through these rigorous studies where they're overcoming the placebo, the sugar pill. And what's happened over time is it's become more and more difficult to overcome that placebo effect, because our minds are becoming more powerful. Because as you come forward, as Joe Dispenza, as many others have figured out how to heal themselves, then you have told everybody listening that this is possible. And once the collective understands that an idea is not just something that is a wish or a nice to have, but it's actually a concrete solution that somebody experienced, then that means that if you experienced it, I can experience it. And then it becomes an actual part of the collective where more and more people are able to do it. So that's why I love having a conversation like you. So for the people who are watching, who want some type of healing, I don't know what it is. It could be anything, emotional or physical, I suppose. What would be the one place, if you can just pick one, where they would need to start, that they could make a change or have some type of a practice of how they spoke to themselves about it?
Wow. One of the hardest things with healing, and when I was on stage with Joe Dispenza, he pointed this out with me, that we're in our body. We're trying to heal the body, and we're in this body. But the moment I healed was when I wasn't trying to heal. See, when we're trying to get somewhere, we're constantly separate from it. We're constantly in lack. And this sounds insane, okay? But you have to actually deny, if you will, the current particulars of your reality. You have to actually not even deny, it's like transcend this. And this is an act of, the only word is faith. The only word is faith, an act of faith, belief, knowing within yourself, I am whole. I am healed. For many, many years, I was trying to get healed and it wasn't working. So I was constantly chasing it, like running around, like, there's the healing, there's, where is it? The moment I realized that if I am the I am, which we are, then I'm already whole. And if I'm already whole, then I'm already healed. And if I'm already healed, then I can feel that gratitude. I can be ahead of linear time. I can be in my future now. And I was in meditation and I experienced the hugest orgasm of the heart, I guess you would call it, like this profound awakening of energy that was very similar to what I had when I came out of the coma. And in that moment, I knew that I was healed. I am. So it's an act of, through people sharing stories is incredibly important. You need to know that this is possible. Like, I am living proof. My medical documents are irrefutable. The scars on my head, I've written a book about it. Dr. Joe Dispenza, he is a man. I've met him. I went around the world with him for a bit and spoke on stage with him. These are real people that have done real healings. And I was told that I would be in pain for the rest of my life, that I would be disabled for the rest of my life. I was told that there is nothing that can be done with Western allopathic medicine, and I would just have to learn to live with it. But that is not the case. That's not what came to pass. So we've got to stop placing doctors up on this pedestal up there, because as soon as we do that, you become suggestible. And when you're in fear and you get the never diagnosis from a doctor, that fear state, as soon as you experience profound emotions like fear, you become highly, highly suggestible. Okay? Your brain is either analytical and less suggestible, or you're highly suggestible and then the analytical mind lowers. This is well known in neuroscience. So in that vulnerability, we're hanging on every word, everything that this medical expert's about to say, and we program the subconscious mind. When you're that suggestible, it's like opening a door to the subconscious and boom, there it is. I am a sufferer of da-da-da. I had bilateral skull fractures, bilateral frontal lobe hemorrhaging. I will be this, 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 and this for the rest of my life. And that's it. That program in the head is enough for that future to come to pass. And this is the tricky thing when it comes to self-healing, because we're in this body and most people don't know about neuroscience. They don't understand advanced biology and they haven't done the sort of research someone like myself or someone like Joe Dispenza. But all of the mechanics, if you will, the instruments, the tools are there within you. Your mind is neuroplastic. The subconscious can be reprogrammed. The mind is controlling the body. There is a link, a neuropeptide, okay, is signaling from the world of thought and consciousness to the physical body to turn on cells in certain ways, okay? It's interacting with the cell membrane, and this membrane, these signals are then going down to the nucleus and finding bits of genetic material that need to be upregulated or expressed or turned off, shut down, downregulated or suppressed. And our mind is involved with this. Our choices are involved in this. Through epigenetics, we know that this is a fact. We know that people can change their mindset and who they're being, their personality, and rewrite a huge portion of the human genome, the expression, within 6 to 8 weeks. These studies have been done at Harvard. Okay, so you've got to understand that your body has this ability. Can everyone do it? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to say that every single being can. That would be wrong of me to say that. But I know the science and I know the path I've walked. And I know that I now live with no pain and no disability And I do things with this brain of mine that should not be possible. Okay. Like I run 2 businesses and write books and I produce records and sing and play guitar. And none of this should have been possible, but it did come to pass. So I would just say for your audience, it's a factor of getting educated, being deaf to the limitation, if you will, like you have to step into that state of faith. You have to. If you don't believe, then it will not happen. Whatever the condition is now, that will stay forever. It just will, because the mind will keep it in place. So getting educated, having that future, that vision of yourself, like me on the weights bench, lifting those weights, and see a beautiful woman in my future. And I could see no depression. I could see I was happy again. I mean, keep that alive. So read books about people that have done it, get educated. And I would just say the number one thing is don't give up hope. Never give up on yourself. It's the most powerful thing we have is love and hope.
So powerful. Okay, now I know you've written a book, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but I feel very compelled to share a book that deeply transformed how I looked at the world. And the reason I'm going to bring it up right now is because you have said I am over and over again today during our talk. And it was a book that I read, goodness, probably 15 years ago. I've had to replace the book multiple times because it's fallen apart. It's gone in and out of print. And it's a book called 3 Magic Words by U.S. Anderson. And
Wow.
do you know what the I'm going to spoiler alert for everybody, but do you know what the 3 magic words are?
I don't. I've never heard of this book.
Well, it was written in 1954. And the 3 magic words are I am God. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because for the people who are watching, it is sometimes, as you said, it's different to try and create what you're talking about without an experience that you've had because you're in the body. And I think that one of the most important things that people can do is not to just go to the end result, but to help them change the perceptions of things to make it easier to incorporate the I am. And the reason I'm bringing this book up is because the entire book is pretty much what The Secret seemed to be based on when that came out in like 2007 or 6 or whenever that came out. And it was this book written in 1954. But again, it was about changing the perceptions and seeing things as if they already happened. And I know from witnessing in my life and not having that experience that you had, that you can change things and manifest things and control how often you get sick. I, like you, realized at the age of 12 that I could control how often I got sick. I've been sick 3 times since 2005. I hadn't had a cold in 20 years, and I got a cold. And I know exactly, and when it happened, I knew exactly, to your point, when you see something and you think, oh, I'm going to get something, and it happens. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I think it's a great place to start. And you mentioned read everything, read lots of things. So I'll put that out there. I'm going to put that in the comments, but I want to just make sure that people can connect with you. So Damian, you've mentioned that you've worked with people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you're traveling and you're talking about this and you've written your experience down. And sometimes it's easier to absorb those lessons when you can read them in print over and over again, or listen to them on an audible over and over again. So where can people find your book? What is it about? Why would they, how will it help them, I guess? And then where can they connect with you?
So the physical book, I'm just looking at reprinting it now. So it's available as a digital PDF through my website, or a video book as well through my website, where I just got on camera and just went there. I just thought, what better way than, the author reading it, going through it all with some extra bits and pieces in there when I did it. So that's just at damienhorton.com/books, I think. You just have to go to the damienhorton.com website. It's also on Audible, available on Audible, and it's the journey that I've taken, basically. It's the honest truth of how this disconnection from love and joy came about through that early childhood pain and worthlessness, not having a father figure, deeply, deeply wanting a dad in my life. And I just wanted to take people through that process. And a lot of people have said that they relate so deeply to the younger years, the early years that I talked about, because we all go through these same sorts of experiences. We have the same, anxieties, and, we feel unlovable, or we feel lonely, or if we're really honest and true with ourselves, we do. This is part of the human condition. So I just take you on this journey to how I could descend to the very, very bottom, how bad it actually got, living in that state of wanting to kill myself, and being a drug addict every single second that I was breathing, to this profound spiritual awakening, and then how I healed, how I changed, how I became another person and manifested my dreams. They're not just some pipe dream. It's not like some people get lucky and some people don't. It is our birthright to manifest the heart's desire. And I say the heart's desire, not the craving and the needing of the ego. I mean, what you were born with. And I was born wanting to speak and to help humanity and to be on stage and to make music and to be a professional musician and sing and play my guitar. And I manifested it. It came to pass. I asked Universal Consciousness to let me speak on stage with Joe Dispenza. I said, you bring this to me for the highest good. I told my ex-girlfriend, she said, you are crazy, you are nuts. We're on the other side of the country. And I said, well, I'm driving across the country. I'll be on stage in 48 hours with this man. Bang, it manifested. I had a dream of working with Jeff Martin, the incredible vocalist and multi-instrumentalist from the Tea Party, the Canadian rock group, the Tea Party. He was one of my big musical influences growing up. I stood in the crowd looking at him up on the stage, and I said to a friend, I'll be on stage one day with him. And he was playing this 1916 Gibson harp guitar. It's a double guitar. It's the most stunning instrument. I said, I will play that. I'm going to hold it. And my friend goes, you're nuts. 10 years later, I moved up to Byron Bay, Australia, and I lived with Jeff Martin for 2 months. And we made 2 records.
Of course you did.
We made 2 records together, and then I was holding that Gibson harp guitar with literally I had tears in my eyes. And a couple of months later, I was playing on stage. I opened for his show. He was doing a national tour for his Set in Stone album, and it came to pass. I could give you 300, 400, 500 examples now.
I love that you say not 3 or 4, but 300, 400, 500 examples, because when you are in that flow of love, your life unfolds as if it's a giant synchronicity.
Yes. Now I'm not religious, but I think somewhere in the Bible it says man, which doesn't mean man, but it means us in form, looketh upon the outer world, but God, don't like the word because it makes you think of an object, like a thing called God.
Right, or something outside of us.
God looketh upon the heart. If you can get that, if you can understand that we might be looking on the material world and we see objects and things, but back home, back at source, back at we, that which we are it is looking upon the heart. Just like in my coma, when I was tested, it was non-verbal, what's in your heart. I mean, in Egypt, they used to weigh the heart at death. If you can get this and understand that this is the gateway, any guru or teacher who is telling you to deny emotion is stripping you of your road to enlightenment, that your path up that ladder, anyone who's saying, oh, it's just human emotion or don't feel feelings, all of this stuff, no, don't put labels on them. Don't form an identity out of them or a victim story. But again, as Eckhart mentioned, I think in A New Earth, his book, he said it's a very short-lived movement through the organism. It's just a change in the electromagnetic field. And emotion is energy in motion. It just moves through. And then you're back into this state of just connected to the universe. And in that state, as you said before, synchronicity happens. You can have a thought, oh, I'm going to meet Dr. Joe Dispenza and be on stage. Bang, it happens. I'm going to make records with my childhood hero. Bang, I'm sitting on his couch in his living room, living there for 2 months. It is possible, but I guess until you get feedback, a lot of maybe some of your listeners right now are just thinking that Damien Horton from Australia is nuts. That's fine. I've gone well beyond worrying about what other people think of me. My path, my purpose, I was brought back here to share this. This is between me and source. It's not about other people judging me anymore. Once you start getting feedback, if you can take that leap of faith, you will know, as I know and as you know, that we are creating our reality. We are God's flesh. We are.
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. So have people want to connect with you, Damien? How do they do that? What's the best way?
You can shoot me an email at support@damienhorton.com. The best way is probably my Instagram is sort of mainly my music. And I'm terrible with social media. So I apologize for the people that contact me and it takes a bit to get back to you. But Damien Horton Music is my Instagram, or else on Facebook. They're the best ways to get in touch. I'm sitting on 3 advanced workshops that I've built. I was running them in 2022 and 2023 in Australia. The problems I was having is booking physical venues, getting enough people at one time to cover just the costs was becoming crippling, and I was actually losing money. I was either breaking totally even for these events or losing a couple $100. And I eventually went, okay, I have to wait until there's enough demand. But I'm sitting on these workshops, these events that they are everything I've ever learned and every single thing I know from 15 years of research in consciousness and neuroscience, quantum physics, and the mind-body connection, genetics, everything in a really simple to understand, easy to execute way where we step into consciousness and we get people expanding their level of awareness into deep meditation and activating, what people call the third eye, pineal gland. And they were so much fun. It felt like my whole life's purpose had coalesced to this point of running these events, because that's where my heart is. Not on screens and in the digital thing, it's with real human beings. And that's why I like the music and getting on stage and performing. So hopefully later this year or next year, we can kick them off again. And yeah, the details about that will be on damienhorton.com as well, /workshops. So I'll get a thing up there where people can register their interest, just a name and an email, and I'll keep your viewers posted when that's ready. There's also a new album that's being released as we speak on Spotify. So Damien Horton on Spotify. And my second book is about 2 chapters away from being finished. So
congratulations. Well, we'll have to come back and have you talk about that second book.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
It'd be fantastic. Damien, I could probably talk to you for several more hours. I just looked down at my stopwatch. That's kind of funny. It just hit 1:11. So what a delight. The information that you're sharing has the ability to help so many people, if nothing else, just to change their perception and understand what's possible. So thank you so much for sharing this. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing to help wake up the collective, as you know, it is so needed right now.
It is. And same to you. Thank you so much, because every little piece of the puzzle is adding to the collective. And if you think about how far we've come, especially over the last 4, 5, 6 years, this collective frequency is changing rapidly. It's so beautiful to see.
It is so beautiful to see. And I want to thank everybody who's watching. Thank you for being part of that frequency change. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.